Good evening, welcome one and all to ERL, to Tier 2. We have here tonight for, once again, another edition of the Silverstone race, which we had an absolute cracker of a race last night. Hopefully we can have a similar sort of race tonight and this evening for Tier 2. Obviously, last night it went down to the absolute wire, but of course, not really sure if that will happen again tonight. Obviously, in terms of recent winners, obviously pretty much been all about Kotos, if I remember rightly, pretty much, and Vin Porsche. Them two really been on top of their game lately. Pretty sure those other two, who really been in form as of late. Obviously, not to say Vigo hasn't been in form. Vigo has, but obviously Kotos probably, I imagine, will be retiring in the pits, pretty sure, and same with probably Vin Porsche as well. Obviously, still got to see what Hazard can do. Obviously, he's back for another race tonight in Tier 2 overall. So, yep, be interesting to see what he can do, and of course, be hopefully a interesting Silverstone Grand Prix overall. So, obviously, I'll go through the standings quickly whilst we've got a moment. So, Vigo currently is your championship leader. And I was actually doing a few maths today, unsurprisingly. And I'm pretty sure by round, it'll be, yeah, basically round, Portugal. I'm pretty sure that's the soonest, Vigo can win the championship overall, because obviously there's 31 points for a race win maximum. I'm not sure if we've got a sprint in between there and then. Probably do. So, pretty sure that is the soonest Vigo can win and claim his title overall. But he would have to be, after that race, overall about what he is now, 63 points clear of the championship leader of second place of Storms. So he's got a good opportunity to claim the title sooner rather than later. So Portugal would be the first event where I believe he can claim that title with 2 races remaining. So Storm's in P2. Limited Danny is in P3 at the moment on 83. So close battle for 4th because Nix is on 80. Then we got Ralph Atari, who's on 76 points. And then behind him on 73 and 72 is Litz and Kotos, both in, Kotos obviously is a stand-in driver, so doesn't race here all the time, but when he does, can be a very tough driver to obviously beat. In terms of last race result, obviously Kotos won, followed by Tiny, who had an absolute cracking race. My driver of the day, gave him driver of the day because that was his, I believe, first ever league race with us, so with the ERL, which, of course, for a first turnout for him, for Tiny, ultimately, it's a brilliant result for, first race for him of the season, and I look forward to seeing what he can produce tonight, of course, which hopefully he can produce a very decent result. Now, I'm not going to go through all the drivers' standings because there is 59 entries, and therefore I think that would probably take me all night to go through them all. But overall, yep, Vigo in a very comfortable shape at the moment in terms of the championship, and something with about 5 rounds or 6 rounds remaining, wherever it is now, would have to drastically go wrong for Vigo to not win this title in Tier 2 this season. So, really, each of these races now, I kind of hope we see a bit of closer racing, because in a sense, when I say closer racing, not that we've been having bad racing or anything, but in Tier 2, I just hope maybe a few more different winners would be nice to see. Due to the fact, obviously, the championship's pretty much wrapped up in tier 2 in terms of drivers. From a constructor's point of view, obviously, it's a lot closer, to be fair. Not just a little bit closer, it is a lot closer. Only about 30 points is the difference at the moment between Alfa Romeo and AlphaTauri. So, that's pretty tight between them two teams. Williams is also kind of in the mix, a little bit further behind in third with 180 points, and then McLaren and Ferrari only separated by 2 points in fourth and fifth. McLaren in fourth and Ferrari fifth, and then Mercedes a little bit further behind in sixth with 147. Then Haas with 127 and Alpine with 116. So Aston Martin right now are currently not bottom, but almost bottom, just ahead of Red Bull on 91, and Red Bull at the bottom of the field. Unlike real life, usually that, pretty much flipped the order, and you pretty much got the real life standings, just almost. But yeah, Red Bull, I suppose they're still dominating, just the opposite way around. Dominating for last place at the moment, which I suppose could be worse. Bit of a change, I suppose. Anyway. So I've just gone into a party on my own. Just a comment if you can still hear me. Reason I've done that is just because on the game, EA have basically introduced a system. So basically, a new system basically allows the on-track audio just come through. So I don't want that to affect any drivers today, so that they can't hear me commentating. Ultimately. So anyway, bunch of cars are on their way out. Limited Danny then is the first driver to head out onto the track, and literally it's a flurry, and in fact it's not Limited Danny, it's one of the Red Bulls of, I think, Unsainted. So actually Unsainted is the first driver out then tonight. He will be the first one to get his lap in. Now, I do wonder whether some of these drivers have gone out a bit early, because that's a very quick time to get on the setups, within about 30 seconds, but I hope they've all got their setups on, but if they haven't, then that's their issue to deal with. I imagine they would have done, so I wouldn't have thought that's too much of a problem. So, Unsainted is going to be your first driver to commit to a flying lap. Obviously has invalidated on the out lap. That won't be too much of a issue to his, to hinder him. As long as he doesn't do that on his proper flying lap, then that's all that matters. And obviously don't invalidate at the final two corners. Evening, Dave. Hope you're doing well. So here we go then. On a lap of Silverstone with Unsainted. Up into turn 1. Then through turn 1. A little bit wide of the apex of 1, but still keeps the car in pretty much a pointed direction. Towards turn 2 or turn 3, that really is. Then off, then I believe this is Farm Corner. Down then the Wellington Straight. And Tim, saying obviously, fair enough. Into Luffield. Gets the car nicely rotated. Obviously, Limited Danny there in the background, so we'll see what he will do shortly. He'll be the second car to cross the line. Kotos has retired. Obviously, he's done that in the pit lane, so same within Porsche. Obviously, them drivers have pretty much got qualifying bans due to the fact they have, they're reserving from a higher tier, so in case you don't know, in ERL, the higher tier you reserve from, effectively, you therefore race, well, start at the back, basically. So for them to, that's wide. So Tiny kicks things off with a 27-8, and Danny goes on to a 27-4, followed by Vigo, championship leader, on to 27-5, but Hazard has already kicked things into the 26-2s. So 26-5 I meant for Vigo, 27-4 for then Danny. So those are the first 4 lap times. Nix is going to be the next one to come around the final couple of corners. CPI Danny is also probably on a qualifying ban, forgot to mention that too. And Nix moves above his teammate for now, so that puts him into a provisional front row spot then for himself. How about Allmouth? He's starting a lap, so we'll find Storms then, who's coming towards the end of his lap. Currently sat P2 in the championship standings. Round the final couple corners he comes. Where is this going to put him? Puts him P4 for now on a 26-7, so that's a decent effort by him. Next up is going to be Litz. I believe that was Owen potentially putting in a lap time, or Piano Jam, one of the two. Them two though going 5th and 6th for now, but Litz then coming around that final corner and goes on to provisional pole, so 26-0 for the Mercedes man, and that's a very good effort by him. So Costa is going to be next, coming through Cops. He is through Maggots, and then into Beckett's, of course, and Hazard's retired then from the session, so he will not do another lap. So I'm not entirely sure what's gone on there, and looks like he's retired in a bit of an awkward place. That looks like that was on the track, so coming into the pit lane, maybe made a very bad error to do that. Not sure how you, well, retire there. Must have crashed into the pit lane or something, but yeah, something's obviously occurred. And Kosa goes into then P6 now, so displaces Piano Jam and moves himself into the 26-8s. So far, only 6 drivers managing to do a 26 so far. Not many of them, but so far, that's your current lap times. Now, Ralph Fatari, he's on out lap going very, very slowly. Not entirely sure why, because I don't think Owen's on a fast lap. He's on a in lap, so maybe he thought, obviously, Owen was on a faster lap. But yeah, going very, very slowly. How that might affect his tyres could be pretty critical, because obviously tyre warm up and having the tyres in the right operating window can be a crucial thing, especially probably more so on the game than it would be in real life, actually, because, well, in real life, even if your tyres aren't in the operating window, you can still get a very good lap time in, whereas on the game, the downforce obviously operates a bit differently compared to obviously what it would do in real life. So yeah, tyres probably more of a critical thing in the game than the aerodynamics, I would argue, personally speaking. So nonetheless, looks like he's still managing to crack on with this lap. Doesn't look like he's having any sort of issue, so that to me indicates he's, not really suffering out there from whatever he was doing in that final sector. So middle sector 22.8, so that's certainly probably within the region of a decent 26 sort of lap time that we've seen from the top brass of drivers so far. Into the final couple of corners that he comes. And around the final corner, where's this going to put him? The 26.2 just moves 3 thousandths ahead of Hazard, the Ferrari man. So that obviously now sees him onto the front row, and Hazard now down onto the second row of the grid. It'll be interesting to see where Hazard actually starts now because of his retirement. Does he start, inside the top, 5? Does he start inside the top 6? or even inside the top 7, because I wouldn't really rule out Piano Jam, going faster. I wouldn't rule out Owen going faster, nor Limited Danny. I'm pretty sure probably all of them could potentially do a 26.2, so it is probably plausible we will see faster lap times. If we're already on the 26 zeros for first runs, then ultimately, and in the 26s, then there are certainly drivers notably who can improve their times. So we've got Vancy, who's on a lap, but that's very wide at Cop, so that's certainly going to hinder his lap time. Plus he's got a car ahead of him, which looks a little bit like an impediment there from the Ferrari driver. I believe that'd be of AlphaTauri. So that's not, well, that could get reported to the stewards. Not sure anything will come of it due to the fact he wasn't really, very wide at cops ultimately. So not sure whether Bouncy will report that or not. We'll have to wait and see until after the session. But nonetheless, through the final corner for Bouncy, and it's a 29.3. So even if there was a slight impediment there, didn't really, by the looks of it, make too much of a impactful difference. So, right, Vigo, a 10th up. We'll follow Nick's actually, to be polite to his teammate, because ultimately Nick's did do the better of the first runs between the two teammates. So Nick's through the middle sector, and is he improving? Yes, he is, and in fact, improving by a very handy amount. This would see him into the sub 126 region, so probably on a 25 at the moment, 25.9. That's where he's sort of at as he comes into now the final couple of corners of the lap. So is he going to improve by even more in this final part of the lap? And he does improve by a little bit more, and it's a 29 then 8.3 for the AlphaTauri man. What is Vigo doing behind? Is Vigo improving? He is improving. He's up by only, though, just 0.3 on his delta. But having said that, he just pips his teammate to the post and does a 25.982. So only 1,000ths now of a second, splitting the top two, splitting the two AlphaTauris. And that is really close for comfort between them two at the moment. So really exciting stuff going on there. Here comes then AlphaTauri. He's beaten them two by even further margins and gone 0.2 quicker. And I'm not sure if that's a second run on those tyres. I'm going to have a quick look to see. In fact, it is. So that's a very impressive lap by AlphaTauri, considering that's a second run by him. Because ultimately, well, with that being a second run on that tyre, he's only used therefore one set of tyres, and still would have, therefore, that indicates to me even more pace to come on a fresh set of new tyres. Could we see him into the, sub 125.5 territory? I think that's really in the, window at the moment, seeing that. If he can do a fresh run on a fresh set of softs. So, really looking good for him then. So, right, Piano Jam, we'll follow him around. Obviously, Alfa Romeo. Currently, they are, I believe it's second in the standings with 214 points. Right now, they are 8th and 17th. I'm not sure if actually CPI Danny would score points for the Alfa Romeo team. Certainly, Piano Jam probably would, considering he's a full-time driver for them. So, obviously, through the middle part of the lap, then Piano Jam comes, and is he improving his lap time? He is. He's a whopping 0.6 up. So this is a very solid improvement by Piano Jam with about 5 minutes to go. However, if he does get this lap in, it's going to be quite a tight turnaround for him to make it back to the pits for a third run at it. So if he does get this lap in, this might be his final effort of the day. And I think he might have lost a little bit of time in that final sector, because he's only improved by 0.3 there in the end. I think it was. So, that was his final sector improvement. But yeah, nonetheless, still a decent jump up into the, well, up into P7. So that is certainly a decent effort by him. Right now, then Owen is the next car we'll follow around. 10th up for the first sector, then for himself. So, decent improvement. Through Cops, almost invalidating on the exit there. And just as we, watch Owen's lap, I'm going to get up a track map. We'll see what his middle sector's saying. 2 tenths up, so 2 tenths to good for Owen. So this is a very decent lap for, well, coming together. This most definitely will be his final run due to the fact there's only 3 minutes on the clock. So for his final run, what is he going to post? Can he get below the 127s? He does, but obviously does not positionally improve. So ultimately, he will remain 10th, but does put more daylight between himself and Unsainted, and therefore that, for him, should see him remain in then P10, I reckon. So that's a very decent effort. Now, Storms is improving by 2 tenths of a second, as he will come around the final couple of corners through Club, and out of Club, does a 26.5. Decent improvement, but again, no positional improvement for him to go on to a 26.5. In fact, might have moved up 1 position. My apologies. So, did move up into 6th, was 7th. So, we are coming now into the final part of then the qualifying here. So, Coaster is the next driver round, then Village and through the loop. Then he comes down the Wellington Straight towards Luffield. And into Luffield now he comes, of course. So, towards Cops. And then into Maggots, Beckett's, and then through Chapel. And currently 2 tenths up, so this would see him move probably into that 26.5 range through now the final corner. This certainly, most definitely will be Coaster's final lap. So can he improve positional? And does move up the positions into now 6th to displace Storms, who's obviously completed his run. So Storms now into P6 for now. So Litz is going to be, I believe, one of the first. So let's have a look who's actually first up. So first up is going to be Nix. Ralph Attari's actually decided to stay in the pits, so he will not set another lap. So it's all going to come down to what Nix, Lit, and Vigo can do. Vigo's about to start his lap now, as Nix is coming through Chapel. So, literally, Vigo's into Abbey, and currently Nix improving by 97 thousandths. So this would be enough to get him at least 1 position up the order, but would not see him right now be on pole. So would just miss out on pole by probably about a 10th of a second. So round the final corner, through Club he comes, and around that final corner, misses out on provisional pole by about 20 thousandths. So it was better than I first thought, at least. So, round for Litz, he's improving and moves ahead of Vigo, but only by about 40 thousandths. So, what is Vigo doing? He's 61 thousandths up as he will blow it through Maggots, then through Beckett, and into Chapel, hitting the apexes very, very nicely. Then opens up the DRS down the hanger straight towards Stowe and is over a 10th up, so that's a bigger improvement than his own teammate. And obviously his teammate got within about 20 thousandths through then Stowe into Vale corner and around then Club. Then he will come for the final lap. Then here, is it going to be pole position for the AlphaTauri man? It is. So AlphaTauri out-qualify AlphaTauri. Then it's Vigo, your pole sitter from AlphaTauri. Then Nix in P3. A very good day for AlphaTauri then, for literally the Tauris. Then come Litz. Costa is P6, but I forgot, obviously, Hazard in P5. And in fact, sorry, no, Limited Danny comes across the line in P5. So Limited Danny displaces Hazard. Obviously, would have been nice to see what Hazard could have done as well had he been there come the final few laps. But obviously, something happened there. But that is your qualifying then. Vigo, once again, your championship leader and your pole sitter for today. He really had to work for this one to take the pole. Weren't probably his most easiest of qualifying sessions, but he got there in the end. And once again, is on provisional pole, or not provisional pole, is on pole for today's Grand Prix around Silverstone here in Tier 2. So, obviously I'll go through now your race starting grid. So, on pole position, you have got Vigo from AlphaTauri. That's your front row for today. Then on the second row, we have Nix and Litz in third and fourth. Then with 5-place grid penalty, it'll be Limited Danny. So Limited Danny will start down probably in about 10th or 11th. Then will be Hazard in 5th, Kosa in 6th, then Storms in 7th. Piano Jam up into 8th. And Owen into 9th. 10th will be, obviously, Danny. Valsey in 11th, then Unsainted in 12th. 13th is Allmouth, No Smoke. Kotos in 14th, Tiny 15th, then Porsche 16th. CPI Danny is in 17th, and I'll go through just the rest of the grid on my phone. So CPI Danny in 17th, then it will be ERL Piers in 18th, and Airman in 19th. And then Pringles rounding up the last spot on the grid in 19th or 20th position, whichever one it is. And that is going to be your starting grid for today. So, obviously, we will be going racing very, very shortly. Around Silverstone for round number, obviously, 8 today. Round 7 took place last time out. And here we go then. The lights are on, and it is go, 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 go for the British Grand Prix. And it is a great start by your pole sitter for today. Then come AlphaTauri. We've also got a few cars off in the background, but it does look like everyone's made it sort of safely through turn 1, then here, and through 2. So out of then the, I believe that's Abbey corner, or one of the corners, and we've got a Haas car off in the background, and Coaster's out of the race. And like yesterday, we've got a lap 1 interruption. Wasn't Abbey corner, that was Aintree where the Haas driver went off But yeah, through entry, Kosa went off, and yeah, as I say, like yesterday, got a lap 1 interruption of a safety car, and obviously the drivers, therefore, will effectively get racked up once again then. And effectively, well, as I said, like yesterday, no real beneficiaries from a lap 1 safety car. Of course, maybe the soft runners are probably the biggest beneficiary. Today's possible race strategies predicted is hard mediums or soft mediums. So that's certainly a bit of a unusual strategy to be predicting there from the game. But who knows? With safety cars, maybe we'll get more safety cars than yesterday. And CPI Danny, who started pretty much dead last, or one of the dead last runners, at lap 1, up into 10th. So CPI Danny already halfway there, literally. So for the top 4 remains unchanged. Owen had a good lap 1 by the looks of it, up 1 or 2 positions. By the looks of it, Hazard not having a good lap 1, down into 8th. Piano Jam had also a decent-ish lap 1. Looks like he's survived then there, which is pretty good. What you want to do. Pringle's a very good lap 1, up from last into 14th, so he'll be pleased with that. Same with Airman. He also had a very decent lap 1 as well. So decent lap 1s from a lot of drivers. Tiny and Allmouth in the pits, both going on to the mediums. So, as I said yesterday, probably a lap 1 safety car really does help the soft runners, and we actually saw that sort of work yesterday for Arbejduri, who isn't here tonight, but Arbejduri, in case you were wondering what happened yesterday, I'll actually go back whilst, in fact, I'll talk about what happened yesterday. What I'm saying is, so, yesterday, in case you missed yesterday's race, it was pretty much a similar sort of situation. However, I believe it was Charlie Harris and the McLaren driver of Dandan coming together. Dandan DNF'd, unfortunately, which obviously weren't good for his championship hopes, considering he's one of the top 4 drivers that could win the championship in Tier 1 this season. So after that, the safety car came out. Similar situation to what we've got now. Vigo on the softs, Ralph Fatari on then the Vigo on the softs, Vigo on the mediums, so your race leader on mediums, Ralph Fatari on the softs, and basically that was Arbejduri versus obviously the Alfa Romeo man of Stewart at the time. And in the end, basically, even though I thought the medium probably would have been the better strategy, Stewart went to the softs and in the end just didn't really have the pace to compete with, on the last lap, didn't have the pace or the grip, enough tyre to keep them softs alive. But interestingly, Ralph Fatari, through probably having the, not Ralph Fatari, but obviously the Alfa Romeo man, or not the Alfa Romeo man, the Aston Martin man of Arbejduri, through having the safety car, probably helped him extend his stint a little bit and made that soft to medium stint work, and yeah, won the race on the last lap, or second to last lap. So I do wonder whether we could see a similar situation here, where Ralph Fatari is right now sitting in a very handsome and comfortable position. Did he watch last night? And if he did, has he learned from, obviously, Arbejduri's victory and how to win a race in these circumstances? That's what I'm more or less saying. Ralph Fatari, if he did watch last night and did learn anything, what did Vigo, if he watched yesterday's race, did he learn anything from Arbejduri or from Stewart? Because had had I watched it last night, and I did, I probably would have learned, maybe if you're in Vigo's shoes, to be more proactive than reactive. And if you are going to be reactive, maybe you want to give yourself a bit more of an offset to try and counterbalance all of this at the moment. But I think Vigo's decided to go, has he? No, I thought he did. It did look like he went. So I'm not entirely sure if he did or didn't, but nonetheless, he does have to go before the line, and he's gone now, most definitely. You can hear him lay down the power, and instead, looks like he's not gone again, so I'm not sure. That certainly might get called into question, because that is certainly, I don't think, allowed. I don't think you're allowed to go, then stop, then go. That certainly, in my opinion, was illegal driving, because I certainly heard wheel spin in his car, but we'll see if that gets called into the stewards later on tonight. Yeah, certainly from my onboard, certainly from the offboard, first time he looked like he went. But anyway, it don't look like he's got a great getaway on the second time of asking anyway. And here goes then, Ralph Fatari round the outside into Brooklands, and Vigo's going to get the switch back into Luffield, and through Woodcote they go. So down the old international pit straight, Vigo is ahead as we go through Woodcote, but it's Ralph Fatari who will pull ahead as we head towards Copse. On the outside, both of them still side by side through Copse, and it's Vigo who manages to hold off then Ralph Fatari's defence in the battle for P1. Through Maggots, through Beckett's, into Chapel. Who's going to get the better exit? You'd probably predict it will be, obviously, Ralph Fatari on those softs. He's going for the inside line as we now head towards Stowe. Vigo trying to keep his car on the inside as much as possible to give him the old squeeze. And as we get to Stowe, it's going to be Ralph Fatari then ahead. But as we head towards Vale and Club, then on to lap 4, they are still side by side. Ralph Fatari still pushing then ahead, but Ralph Fatari now ahead, and these two really going at it in this opening lap of the race really here, as Vin Portionow commits the fastest lap then. And finally, I can probably take a breath after all of that, because I think Ralph Fatari looks like he's now just pulling a little bit out, a little bit of a lead, and is looking more healthy than what he was a lap ago. But we'll keep our eye on this battle for first, of course, as we'll look further down the order. But that was an awesome lap by the pair of them. Both managed to keep it clean just about, and both of them managing to stay out of trouble as we head on to lap 5. So here comes CPI Danny. He's obviously making his way up through the field, and he's already up into 6th. So he's absolutely flying along. And bear in mind, he is on the hard tyres, which, you know, ultimately should be a lot slower than the softs at this rate. Yeah, obviously he's really flying along, so he's certainly going to be a happy lad. And in fact, he's making up another position. Someone just, you know, yeah, this, I'm not going to lie, you know, I don't want to say CPI Danny should be banned from racing in this tier, but yeah, if he wins this race by 20 seconds, ban him please from racing in this tier, because he's too quick. Like, he's already up to 5th on a set of the hard tyres. He's only a second behind the podium spot, and ultimately he's probably going to be in a second or so on the podium. Give it half a lap, he'll be in 3rd. So yeah, maybe a bit more than half a lap, maybe a lap or 2, but he is certainly going to be very much racing for that 3rd position very, very soon. It's not a question of if, it's more of a question of when. And also the other fact is, you know, the drivers he's passing are on softs, are on mediums, are on, you know, quicker compounds than him. So he's really, really quick. Can't knock him for doing it. Hopefully his pace plateaus out now as he gets more towards the top drivers. But nope, here he goes again. Here's CPI Danny. Brilliant move once again. Very simple, very clean, and up into fourth. Again, as I say, can't knock him for doing it, for the pace he's got. It's almighty, but I just feel it's so unfair on all the other drivers who are in this tier, because, you know, the tiers are tier pace, you know, or pace-based tiers, and you can see he's got way much more pace than what the others have got out there. And effectively, after 7 laps, he can just toy with everyone already. So, then Porsche is the other driver on move. Nix is now up into podium, and I did say give it a lap, literally. There you go. Boom, bing, bang. And then Porsche making a move round the outside of Luffield on Owen. Gets the move done very nicely by Vim Porsche. So that's Vim Porsche up into now 7th, as Storms looking to get past Owen. Here goes Storms into Maggots, keeps the car on the inside, doesn't back out, and gets that move done round the outside at Maggots. But has he maybe cost himself a bit here? Because obviously the tow is going to benefit Owen more here as we head towards Stowe, literally. And that's still Storms ahead of Owen as we head then into Stowe and out of Stowe towards Vale. And Owen is now down into 9th. Obviously, he's on those soft tyres, so therefore he will be getting eaten up a little bit by those softs now as the race goes on. And I do expect now Vigo to start also being another driver to benefit from now those softs starting to go off, probably on the Alpha, on Ralph Attari's car of the Ferrari. Owen made a mistake there that allows Hazard up the inside into Antry, and through Aintree he goes and into Brooklands and is ahead of his rival there. So Owen's also got a penalty for good measure. So next up will be Tiny. Not having quite the race he had last time out in Spain, Catalonia, but is, of course, you know, doing a good job so far of making up the positions. So, as I say, interesting to see where he can get up to. Did start, obviously, down towards the back of the grid and is now in to then P11. But Limited Danny has crashed out of the race, and that means Limited Danny is caused our second safety car of the day. So this is now going to, well, work out beautifully for the soft runners, because now they can go obviously onto a set of the mediums or maybe a set of the hards. Can you get mediums to the end of this race? I'm not entirely sure what you can do, but I'm pretty sure those might try it. We'll try. Obviously, for Vigo, he can go on to a set of the hards and definitely get to the end of this race. Seeing what CPI Danny does, he's gone for a set of the mediums, so he's trying then that strategy. Now, with obviously a second safety car, therefore I'm going to predict more safety cars are to come. Obviously, I don't know whether you've watched IndyCar, but there's a commentator on there and says safety cars breed safety cars, meaning if you cause one safety car, then the second safety car usually follows, then we'll have a third and fourth, and that's usually the way things go. So now this race could become a bit of a game like Snakes and Ladders. So if you've ever played Snakes and Ladders, pretty classic endless game. Basically, you know, it's all going to be down to when you make your stops. So, yeah, when that safety car does come, does it suit you? Do you make your stop and drop down the order and maybe benefit from that fresher set of tyre, or do you stay out and try and hope you can maybe use a older set of tyre, but, you know, a tyre that, you know, will just stay alive the longer and, you know, not risk using a tyre that will fall off the cliff more. Ultimately, that's what this race will, well, might be becoming after that second retirement. But obviously, so far, it's been brilliant racing. That really was great racing between Ralph Attari and Vigo on that lap, that fight for the lead on lap 4. That was probably some of the best racing so far I've seen this season in Tier 2. So, yeah, that was a really good battle between them two. That whole lap almost, going side by side. How they did not also come together is beggars belief as well, because there was some close calls in there. But they managed to keep it respectful and managed to keep it entertaining as well for us equally. So CPI Danny down now to 7th, but is behind the Ego, who's on hards. And Ralph Attari will be the first car he comes across on the same sail compound with the same tyre life, of course, with those 1 lap used. Obviously, 1 lap used under safety car. Big question is, can the medium runners get those tyres to the end? Obviously, safety car might be in at the end of this lap. Depends whether Pringles catches up to the rear of the snake, of the train. And if he does, then safety car just might be in this lap here for us. But if not, then it'll certainly be in at the end of the next lap. So we'll have to wait and see. But if it is in the end of this lap, there'll be about 16 laps to do on a set of mediums. It probably is doable, because actually Stewart did do 16 laps yesterday on a set of mediums. So yeah, it is probably doable, but the hard will be the better tyre towards the end. So I'm thinking the likes of Storms, I'm thinking the likes of Vigo, they certainly will have the better longevity overall. But initial pace certainly will be Ralph Attari and will be the likes of Vigo, who will most definitely be then the quicker cars. And Litz has interestingly chosen to stay out on softs, which I think is bold. It'll be obviously now his call when to go. So when does he put his foot down? When does he go on this restart? Safety car has returned to the pits, so he can go any time now. It's down to him when he wants to go for it. Obviously, there are cars much faster behind him on fresher tyres, so he's gone now out of club corner, and he's now leading us once again away in this race, followed by Nix in P2, then ERL Piers in P3. Then comes Ralph Attari, your net race leader, as we head into then turn 2 into Village and into the loop, and through the loop then we go, and that's then Danny trying to make the move already on Vigo, the championship leader in this tier then here. So what does Vigo do to defend against Danny? Well, the answer is literally nothing he can do, because by the looks of it, Danny is going to go around the outside into Lovefield as we head now towards Woodcote, both of them side by side, and it looks like Danny had to back out there, forced off maybe the circuit, as now we're seeing 4 into 1. This really won't work out if they're doing this sort of racing. And we've got another safety car. I'm not entirely sure who it was. I think it was Unsainted who crashed out of this race potentially. And yeah, that is then the 3rd safety car in this race. CPI Danny, did he make up move on Piers? I think he might have done, so he's up into 5th. Not too much lost out, even though did look like a very nervous moment for him, because when he went side by side on the exit of Woodcote or Lovefield, looks like he got run out of road there, and that, by the looks of it, cost him. But yeah, I won't imagine we'll see any of the previous runners in, but certainly the drivers that did choose to stay out for a little bit longer have obviously come into the pits now. Now, they've not really benefited at all by staying out. They probably should have pitted in the last safety car. I guess they will have slightly fresher tyres, but won't be really much considering that the drivers that didn't pit obviously have, that did pit aren't really used up their tyres much, only a lap. That's not going to hurt them too badly there then. But your top three now are Raffatari, Vigo and CPI Danny. That is how the state of play is, followed by Piers, who's still staying out on those mediums, still not pitting, and he does have to pit eventually, I believe, unless he's made his stop. Nope, he hasn't, so he's still got to do his mandatory stop, which therefore staying out makes little to almost no sense, which I really don't understand why Piers is staying out. Surely pitting right now would be the best thing for him, because he's just going to get eaten up alive, and that's what we saw with Nix. Really, they got eaten up alive, and yeah, weren't the smartest of the strategies to go and do. The smart strategy would have been to pit and follow the rest. I know sometimes following can be a bit boring, but yeah. And as I said, safety cars do breed safety cars. We've seen now this is our third safety car within this race. So is there going to be a fourth in line and installed for us today? So for the medium runners that did stop in the safety car before this certainly will help them get their tyres further and further. And for Vigo, this is probably not the ideal situation, because ideally he'd prefer the race to be continuing and them to be taking life out their tyres, I suppose. Like I said, the more safety car we have, the better the medium is in effect, because you know you're just using so much less tyre wear, tyre deg in this phase of the race. So yeah, for Raffatari, for Danny, for Vin Porsche even, and for Kotos and Owen and Valency, who stopped, ideally they're gonna be the beneficiary of this safety car. And you'd have to say the biggest losers are right now Lit, Nix and Hazard and Tiny, who are currently occupying those bottom 4 spots. And safety car is now in at the end of this lap. So we're going to go racing once again for the 4th, I think, time, or 3rd time now. And we're on safety car number 3. Will there be a 4th here? Still, we're going to go racing. So, when does Raffatari go? Has he gone? I'm not entirely sure. I don't think he has, but he's going to go now and puts his foot down out of club corner. And in fact, Vigo's gone with him. So Vigo has gone with the Ferrari driver, and that relieves him from pressure for now from obviously CPI Danny, and into turn 1, into then Village, then side by side they go. Then Danny's gone up the inside through the loop and doesn't give then Vigo much room, maybe paying back the favour that Vigo did to him on the exit of Luffield. Into then Brooklands then, and through Brooklands into Luffield, and CPI Danny into the lead of the Grand Prix, and surely 3x3 through Lovefield on the exit. Who's going to come out on top into Woodcoats? It's going to be CPI Danny, but they're still trying to battle it out for position. Not 3x3 into Cops. This is madness now. How these three are fighting, and in fact I've accidentally meant to, press the wrong one, pressed L2 instead of R2 there, so we kind of missed them, but they managed to keep it clean and keep their cars in one piece through then obviously Cops, as we'll go then 3x3 again. By the looks of it, they're trying to into Stowe, literally one of them's gonna end up putting the other into the wall. That's what I'm predicting at some point in this fight. Like, you can't keep going 3x3, lads. I suppose you can, but we're gonna find out the result of going 3x3 eventually, I suppose, into some of these corners. So back into Village we go. This is where it all started on the previous lap, and it looks like it's all starting again on this lap. Danny gets a position. This time he's a bit further ahead. So Danny is going to then race with Vigo into Brooklands and Lovefield then. And Vigo coming back at Danny again into Brooklands and gets the move this time a bit sooner done. So does Vigo challenge then Ralph Attari into Cops, or will Vigo keep ahead of his rival? By the looks of it, Vigo keeps ahead of Danny this time. So Danny is then the loser there at the moment. And Vigo does a fabulous move into Maggots and Beckett's. And on the exit of Chapel, gets ahead. But now he's going to be the one giving them the tow down the hangar straight. So into Stowe corner we go. And again, they're going to go 3x3. By the looks of it, Danny just got the move done on then Ralph Attari, or has he? Because as we come then into Vale through Club, both of them keep it clean, and into Club corner we go. CPI Danny is ahead of then ahead of Ralph Attari, the Ferrari, and that is then Danny up into P2, and then Vim Porsche comes next, but Vim Porsche does have a penalty, but by the looks of it, Ralph Attari's also picked up a penalty, and CPI Danny is now going to have the DRS, going to have also the slipstream. What can Vigo do to defend? Vigo pushes him aggressively towards the inside, and as we get to Brooklands, then it is CPI Danny into the lead of the Grand Prix. But we saw what happened here yesterday between it was Danny, Dan, and forgetting Charlie Harris's name for a second there. But as we go through Cops, both of them manage to keep it clean. They're still fighting away this group. And this is a right old scrap for the lead of the Grand Prix and for this race win at the moment. Who is going to come out victorious in the end? Obviously, all this fighting cannot be helping the medium runners with their tyres. This fighting is obviously working probably more into the favour, surely, of Vigo, you'd have to suspect, overall. But yeah, Vigo in the end does come out behind. So right, can CBI Danny build a bit of a gap? And it looks like there's coming together between then Vigo and Ralph Attari. Looks like Ralph Attari went into the back of Vigo and just gave his friend, I suppose, a knock there, accidentally, not deliberately of course, but in doing so that has taken Vigo outside the 1 second window and has now put him under pressure from Vim Porsche. So is this the moment CPI Danny needed just to break away from obviously Vigo and maybe go and chase after a win here at Silverstone in this Grand Prix? Because now it's going to be Vigo who is still going to come under relentless pressure from potentially Vim Porsche. But if Vigo can get back within that obviously DRS and stay within the DRS, of course this race is far from over at the moment. Of course, well, there is still over 10 laps to go for the medium runners. Still a lot of work for them to do to even get their tyres home in this race. at the moment. So Danny not showing as much pace as I would have thought. He looked actually probably stronger on the hard tyre than he has done this afternoon on the medium, but side by side into Stowe corner, then they go. Vigo and then Vin Porsche. Vin Porsche a little bit off the circuit there into Vale. Vale at Vale. It looks like Vin Porsche is ahead, and Vin Porsche is ahead of his rival, and Vin Porsche now up into second. So Vin Porsche taking also the fastest lap of the race on that lap as well, in doing that 1:29.2. So Vin Porsche now chasing down Danny. Vin Porsche does have a penalty, and I'm going to check out what those penalties are. So pretty much just 3 seconds. Allmouth is literally racking up the 11-second penalties, so he's on a lot of penalties. So yeah, pretty much 3 seconds. Probably going to be a penalty he will not be able to get replaced then here, and that'll be ultimately a penalty he'll just have to live with come the end of this race. Same with Ralph-Attari. So Ralph-Attari trying to get the move now done on Vigo, and they're still side by side as we head now back towards Copse. Then here, still Vigo on the outside, and Vigo gets to Copse and is safely ahead as we get into the next couple of corners. Still Vigo is sitting pretty in third though with those hard tyres, and you would expect sooner rather than later, as this race deteriorates on, those mediums will start to fade away from the top two, will start to fade away from the Ralph-Attari, but as we're now heading towards then the next couple of corners of Stowe, it looks like then Kotos has made up a fabulous move then to get up into third, and Vigo again having problems at the back there. So Vigo taking a bit of a knock today by the looks of it in this one, and down now into fifth. So not ideal for the championship leader, and also losing more time to that race lead as well. And Vin Porsche now up into first. So Vin Porsche really come alive in this second phase of race since he's got that penalty as well. He's really making progress here. But obviously these two out front do obviously race in like tier 3 sort of races. So these two, I suppose it should be expected in what they can produce, if that makes sense. You know, Vigo probably would be a tier 3 driver, potentially, I'm going to say. In some respects, but yeah, and same with maybe Ralph-Attari. Maybe them top 5 maybe you're watching right now will be in tier 3 next season, who knows. But what a show they've put on actually for us today. Fighting like true professionals, and at times it almost looks like they're going over the limit, but they're really not. They're probably, fighting, perfectly on the track. And yeah, for Vin Porsche and CPI Danny, this is probably practice they're getting in for tomorrow's race, I'm sure. Going to fight out again, probably, for the tier 3 win, hopefully. And I wish them good luck in that. So that will have to wait till tomorrow. Ralph-Attari though getting back pass then. So for Vigo, I suppose this is now a bit of a race about being patient and just hoping now his rival's tyres fall off the cliff. He will finish P4 at the very least and will extend his championship advantage over his main rivals, but I'm sure he would like to, if he could, try and maybe challenge for victory today. It's just a question of when do those mediums start to fade out and drop off. There is still 6.5 laps of racing left in this race, so I still wouldn't like to say it's over before it's over, because we saw what happened yesterday. Went down to the last lap, and the podium positions did not get decided until the very last lap. The race win did not get decided until at least 2 laps to go. So are we going to see a similar sort of situation unfold here as well? So powerful third right now we're watching, and looking very competitive between then Kotos and then Ralphatari. Going further back, a little bit of a battle going on for P8. Tiny's making up good position now, showing what maybe he could have done then had he maybe had a bit of a cleaner race. Not maybe the race he had like last time out, P2. Fabulous result for himself. And one of his first races in ERL Tier 2 this season. So here goes Tiny down the inside of Storms. And going to have a look into Brooklands. Can he now convert it on the outside? Storms did go off the track. So therefore, Storms will concede the position in the end there. And probably made life a little bit too easy for the Ferrari driver. And that is Tiny now up into P7. And next up for him is going to be P6 of Airman, who started also last. One of the other drivers to start last in this race today. He's on the softs, so those softs probably are well past their sell-by date by now. Hazard picks up the 3-second penalty, becoming the latest victim of that penalty system. Obviously, we do run on strict due to the fact that's what we run on. Most leagues run on strict anyway, so that's just the norm, really. And when you're on strict, it is harder than obviously what would it be on regular. Basically, you get only 3 limits, and there you go. Tiny becomes the next victim of that penalty system, and there he picks up a 3-second penalty. That's certainly not going to probably affect him too much. Obviously, got Lits probably to worry about a little bit, but other than Lits, yeah, won't affect him too much here in this race. Plus, as a reserve, plus being so late into the season, Tiny probably not really looking at the championship prospects of winning Tier 2 here this year. He's probably just, focused on doing the best performance he can and showing what he can do on the track, ultimately, more than anything. And personally, showing pride in his driving. I would say that's, the things he's looking to show us, here in ERL at the moment, whereas with maybe Ralphatari and Vigo, their focus is definitely elsewhere. Certainly Vigo, he's focusing on that championship and doesn't really seem to have the pace at the moment to challenge for win. Now 5.8 seconds off the race lead, so it does look like CPI Danny and then Porsche going to fight it out for the race win. Obviously, CPI Danny could just sit there if he wants to and stay within the track limits and follow Vin Porsche around. He would win the race due to the penalty that Vin Porsche has got. So there's no question about that. CPI Danny does look like the strong favourite for your race winner today. But Ralphatari, does he finish on the podium? Does Kotos finish on the podium? These two are still fighting it out for that P3 as it stands. Both of them with the same tyre life and advantage. So Hazard up to 9th. He's still remaining ahead of Owen. So all smoke, no mouth, has retired in the pits. Not sure if that was a necessary retirement or what. Doesn't look like he's got any front wing issues, so that might go down as a unnecessary retirement from the race, which if it does, that would be a race ban coming his way, unfortunately for him. Because obviously all positions do score points in this race and in all the races across the board in ERL, which is a good point system to have, I believe, and I'm pretty sure the owners and everyone would agree with that. So you can't really do that, retire in the pits, because you would score points, and in fact you would have scored very good points in, I think it was 16th, or not 16th, sorry, in 15th or 14th, where the position it was, so would have still scored ahead of Piano Jam, ahead of probably Avanci as well, and maybe ahead of Nix, and he continued. Plus, also, it does risk the event on the safety car, unnecessary safety car, but I suppose at least it's done in the pits. The only time I deem it justifiable is probably, like, no offense, is probably the time where, if, let's say, you were a lap down, maybe then I would, and you kept on spinning, which I have seen. That would be the only time I'd deem it probably justifiable, because ultimately there's no point of continuing to race just to crash into a barrier, if that makes sense, and you know you're going to crash into a barrier. Then, okay, just retire in the pits, whatever, you know, if you're a lap down. That's the only time I personally would deem something justifiable like that. But anyway, that's just me personally. But nonetheless, Ralph still fighting it out with Kotos, and I've just missed something. What has happened to Vigo? That is my question. What has happened to Vigo? Something's happened to Vigo, because he's now down in 8th. And that's a huge blow, because he's now behind his main championship rival, who does have penalty, of course, of 6 seconds. So he would gain that back up. But yeah, huge blow to Vigo there. And that's a huge result for Storms if he can finish ahead, but not good day for the AlphaTauri driver who started pole, going to finish this race probably down in P7. But still will score points towards his championship. As I said, the earliest he can win that championship, from my calculations, would be Portugal. So that would be the soonest I believe he can win. And here goes AlphaTauri again on Kotos. Obviously, does have 3 seconds to his name, I believe. I'm going to double check those penalties quickly. Yep, still got those 3 seconds, so no extra penalty. Fastest lap currently stands with Edmund, so he'll be picking up an extra point for that. I'm not sure if actually pole gets points. If it does, that might be an extra point anyway coming Vigo's way. But yeah, I know obviously race 1 get points, 2nd get points, and so forth. Not sure if though pole and all them positions get points, whether there is a point for pole. Don't think there is, but we'll probably make endeavours to double check. So, the battle for race win as we head on to the final lap. Probably not as exciting last night, because it is a bit anticlimactic due to the fact of the penalties now, and every position bar down to 9th looks to be settled. So yeah, will Danny get through just to take the win on the track rather than having the victory, you know, handed to him? Does go off the track there, so very fortunate not to pick up the penalty. Probably doesn't want to pick up a penalty, but this will be his final chance to take the win on the circuit. He ain't going to get the position done or the move done, so Vim Porsche will take the victory on the circuit. CPI Danny does send it. I've picked up the wrong car again. CPI Danny on the inside, so it does look like CPI Danny's going to get to the line. CPI Danny takes the victory on the circuit by 49 thousandths of a second. Obviously does have the victory anyway due to the 3 second penalty that Vim Porsche had, but CPI Danny not giving up even at the line. Kotos finishes the race in 3rd. AlphaTauri down in 4th. Litz 5th. Tiny in 6th. Vigo 7th. Storms drop down to 8th. Hazard up into 9th. Owen down in 10th. Ehrman then crosses the line now to finish in 11th. Piers in then 12th. Pringles is next to come across the line in 13th then for the McLaren driver, and he'll score decent points today too. Valsey down in 14th. He'll be the next one to cross the line. and then shortly followed by Piano and Nix. As they'll be the last two to cross. So there goes Bouncy, and then Nix and Piano, both crossing the line now. And that is your Tier 2 Silverstone race done. And you know what? That was a very thrilling, action-packed race. Highly enjoyed that. Yes, a bit anticlimactic in the end with the penalty situation. But even actually on the line, I actually enjoyed how that race ended. And well done to CPI Danny. Well done to Vin Porsche. Putting on a show. And what a race them two gave us there in the end. I would say ultimately they're probably a bit over powered for this division, for this tier. Not saying I wouldn't like to see them do that again, but yeah, them two, the way Danny got through the field in those first 7 laps, and bear in mind there was a safety car, was absolutely insane, and Vin Porsche also doing it too. But anyway, I will go through now the order then. So after 44 minutes and 36 seconds and 5/10 of a second, CPI Danny does become your race winner from Vin Porsche. Then Kotos in third, rounding out the final podium spot. Ravatari misses out on the podium today in fourth. Then Litz in fifth. Sixth is Tiny, a good result from him, I suppose, in the end. And Vigo in seventh. Storms in eighth. Hazard ninth. Owen in 10th. Ehrman in 12th. Then it is ERLPs, sorry, in 12th. Then Pringles in 13th. Vonsi in 14th. Piano Jam in 15th. Nix in 16th. Allmouth in, then at the back of the grid, I'll just go through, then rest on my phone again. So at the back of the grid, then the non-finishers are Allmouth, Unsainted, Limited Danny, and ultimately, who was the final non-finisher? Just checking. Ultimately, quick one. So the final non-finisher was Koza. So he was the first non-finisher. In terms of my driver of the day, just as a commentator driver of the day thing that I always give out personally, I'm going to give the driver of the day to... I'm very torn because there was a good few drives. I think I'm going to give it to CPI Danny and Vin Porsche. I'm going to say them two, actually. Them two, the way they came through the field, mainly CPI Danny, actually. I think CPI Danny going to get my driver of the day, of course, because, yeah, he deserves it probably a little bit more due to the fact he didn't have a penalty. So the race was kind of always in his control, in his hands. But, yeah, the way them two came through the field and the battle they put on. But really, any of that top 5 during them laps, that battle was epic. So thank you for them putting on that battle. Sometimes going 5 wide in corners. Almost, it looked like it was crazy mad scenes out there. But brilliant, brilliant racing from all. So until next week, which is Hungary, probably not the best track for the racing, ultimately. Might be a little bit of a more dull affair. But until then, please subscribe, like and share the channel, of course. Tomorrow will be Tier 3 turn to head to Silverstone track. And I believe Iron Kid will be your commentator for that. Might be Iron Kid, I believe. But until tomorrow, obviously, and until next week from me, at least, I'll be back on Monday for Tier 1. So, yeah, as I say, please subscribe. See you all on Monday for Tier 1. See you then.